It's kind of cute how obsessed with you your specific person actually is. And I know, sometimes we don't completely perceive this, but I'm here to tell you in this video, everything negative that you are experiencing in your reality is entirely an illusion and nothing else. And let me actually put it this way. Think of yourself as a perfect extension of your God state, right? If your God state had created its entire reality and you're funneling all your energy through this individual, then it means you could not be made up of any other substance. And if we think of our God state, we can understand that God is not negative. Your higher self has no negativity within them, right? Because if you were to say anything in your reality is negative, you would basically be stating that God themselves or your higher state is negative, because God and your higher state can only create from themselves. So you yourself being an extension of your higher self or your God state means that you also hold all of these positive characteristics. And if you were to start labeling the positive characteristics of your higher self, you would state love, you would state positivity, you would state abundance, all of these awesome and amazing things. And just so you know, negativity, pessimism, worry, and anxiety would not be any of them. So yes, what I'm meaning by this is any circumstances you are perceiving in your reality is completely and entirely an illusion. And you might say, well, yeah, Kyle, but it seems real. This is true. I have these things in my way and these things are problems. But if I were to tell you that you're completely creating this because you and your reality have just as much power as your God state, and thus when you create something in your reality, of course you are going to believe it. It's kind of like the Neville, or not the Neville Goddard quote, but the Course in Miracles quote that states, whatever you accept into your mind has reality for you. It is your acceptance of it that makes it real. And one really awesome metaphor that I always like to use when thinking of this, just to prove that there is no circumstances against you, is the idea of you baking a cake. Let's say you have all the ingredients of baking a cake. In that way, you could pretend as if you're making pizza, you could pretend as if you're making lasagna, you could pretend as if you're making pasta, pretend anything, but you only have the ingredients for cake, so that's all that could ever show up for you. And so your ingredients are love, positivity, abundance, the things that we already went over. And so what you make and what is actually true in your reality can only actually come from those few things and absolutely nothing else. Because if you were to create something of what you are not made of, then we know it's not actually possible. And so, yes, the circumstances, the long distance, the third party, all of these problems are not really problems. And it's only the perception of a problem that actually causes them to show up more as a problem in our reality. Because if you were to think about a problem that doesn't exist, how could you actually solve it? Well, how would that be possible? How can you get over a barrier that's not there? How can you refuse or get rid of a third party that doesn't exist? How can you break the distance between you and your specific person that isn't truly distance at all? And we would say the more we actually give attention and try to overcome these problems, the more we actually just perceive and create the problem, because we can only create from the thoughts that we are, and we believe in what we create, but you cannot actually create anything negative. And so thus the technique and the solution to this is to understand it never was there in the first place. Once we understand that, then everything will fall into place automatically. It will mean that we don't actually have to overcome something. There's no circumstances that are actually ever in your way. It's kind of like if you were to imagine in your house an imaginary lion that's roaming around it. Yes, you could try to ignore it. Yes, you'll feel it's real, but anyone else who comes into the house is immediately going to understand and know there is no lion, right? That's why you're so capable and you give such good advice to other people in your reality when it comes to their manifestation or when it comes to their relationships. You're able to immediately see how there's actually nothing wrong, right? What advice would you give to someone right now? You'd say, oh, live in the end, assume as if, think positively, think abundantly, all of these amazing things that we ourselves feel as if we can't because of the perceived negativity. But it's only when you bring it back to your own state, when you bring it back to yourself, you feel and perceive that it's impossible to think in this positive state, because our emotional connection to the scenario causes us to perceive or think of negativity or circumstances in a way that isn't actually real. But because of this, we can't actually see it for the truth it is. But If you're talking to someone else who's in manifestation or law of assumption, they would easily be able to point you in the direction of where we want to go. And it's, I think, a direction that we automatically know that we can take because it's advice that you would give to someone else. So overall, take any circumstance that you perceive is in your reality right now. And the way around it is to understand it's not actually there. Just like the imaginary lion that's in our house roaming around. You could try to lock it in a singular room and just avoid that room. And that's how we normally respond to negative thoughts. We try to block it out. We try to ignore it. We try to do something else. But that's not actually going to solve the problem because there actually is not a lion in there at all. And so the perception to solve it is always to understand it's not there, because anything you do, any action you take, any thought you do, any technique that you do to try to overcome something that isn't actually there only persists and creates the problem. You're always in a state of abundance, but the abundance is just what we're focusing on and what we're thinking on. So whatever you're thinking on, if you're thinking of abundant, or if you're thinking upon distance, if you're thinking upon third parties, if you're thinking on whatever, you create an abundance of that because you can only ever be in abundance. But yes, don't get it wrong, the negative thought processes that align with what we feel is in our way can't actually exist ever. We can perceive them, we can have a misperception on our reality, but it can't actually exist because there's nothing actually capable of creating that. Your God state cannot do that, right? It can only create of itself, but you being an extension can perceive something that's not really there and convince yourself of it. And so it's kind of like the metaphor I used in a previous video talking about light being positivity and darkness being negativity. Light in your reality is abundant. It's a true physical, actual thing that you can perceive, that you can touch, that you can interact with. Darkness is not. Darkness is just a lack of light and doesn't actually exist. It's not a substance. It's not something that you could capture. It's not something that you can enclose because it doesn't actually exist. It's not actually there. And so negativity is the same exact way. And so yes, I'll state this again, because usually people think or ask from videos like, how do I actually or actively use this? It's understanding and questioning all of these negatives that you feel are in your way. Ask yourself, is this really something that's in my way? Or is this just a misperception? Is there actually something negative? And if I perceive that, how could that be? Because to label your reality as being negative is to label your God state as being negative, because everything in your reality must come from that state. And so if we understand this, we'll start to work against this logical thought that we feel there is something negative or something impacting our manifestation at all, because there isn't. And as soon as we do this, we manifest just like this person did. So this person had just as many circumstances as anyone else, but by understanding that these circumstances are completely made up and entirely an illusion, they had their specific person start to ask them to go on a date more, ask them to hang out, came over, spent the night, woke up in the morning, made them coffee. I believe they made them dinner as well. And all of those amazing things that align perfectly with the end state of already being with our specific person. And this person created it literally just by understanding there is no negativity. There is no such thing, right? It's a figment of your imagination. It's like the Sandman under our bed, right? It's not really there. It doesn't actually exist. It's not actually a thing. Again, we perceive it that way in the same way we can imagine a lion in our house. But even though we could perceive it and believe it and think of it as hard as possible, try to manifest it, you can't actually manifest anything negative because it's not possible. It's not anything that you can create because you have no substance within yourself in order to create that. And so what you can do right now, because I would not wait any longer to reframe these ideas or to pick a better solution, think about your circumstances that you feel are in your way and comment down below how this is actually working out in your favor, or even work against it. Like, I'm misperceiving blank. You can comment that specifically. Or if you need help reframing it, comment that down below, because we're all here to help you figure out exactly how to manifest your specific person. And I guarantee you, what we perceive as negative, as soon as we question it, as soon as we fight against it, we'll see that it never was negative in the first place and was only ever helping us out. Because you can actually go into the past of your own manifestations or your own life and see that's how it's always been, right? Things have always been working out for you. There is never anything negative. What was perceived as negative at the beginning turned into something positive, and this has always been the case. So make sure to comment them down below. Again, remember, any questions, any thoughts, any worries, things like that, comment that down below as well. If there is something that you wanted to reach out to me for or ask me a question of, but you didn't want to post publicly, make sure to head over to kyleaugustcoaching.com. And that's where you can reach me personally. So as always, thank you so much for stopping by today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for hitting that thumbs up button. Thank you for subscribing. And I can't wait to see you in my next video tomorrow.